With the election next week and with it being so close, what stocks are best to add to your portfolio right now that should continue to grow regardless of who wins, and why are these stocks so important to hold? Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, as mentioned, from what we know right now at the time that we're recording this video, the race is close. We don't know who's going to win, but here's what I do know, and I can pretty much guarantee you this. It is going to have an impact on your wallet in one way or another. Now, yesterday, I did a video on how you can protect your portfolio. Today, I will show you how to make some money, okay? So I have a few stocks that I think should do well regardless of who wins, and these could be long-term holds, okay? So I think these companies, and the way I'm viewing this, is that these companies should not be impacted too much either way it goes. Okay, so these should be straight down the middle companies we need, companies that kind of exist a little bit, not completely, but a little bit in a bubble, regardless of the policies that they have. Not completely in a bubble, because nobody exists in a bubble, okay? So I'm going to give you an explanation for each of these companies, but first, as always, I want to set the table on what is at stake in terms of how this can impact the stock market and the economy, just so that you know, and we can kind of roll with that. So again, I want everybody to be informed so you can actually learn stuff when it comes to the stock market. One other thing, I'm gonna give you a spoiler warning here, okay? I've got 4 stocks here. I know the title says 3, so I'm gonna give you a bonus. The reason I'm giving you a bonus, one of these stocks I've mentioned before, y'all gonna hate me for it, okay? I'm gonna just tell you that now. One of these stocks you've heard before, you're gonna hate me for it because I've mentioned it a bunch of times. I don't think none of y'all taking me up on this stock, so I'm gonna just tell you now, okay? So first, I've mentioned the tax thing. Now, both candidates can have an impact on taxes, but it is going to depend on what Congress does. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I believe it was in 2017 when this was passed, is going to expire, or set to expire rather, in 2026. If it does expire, it could raise taxes, I believe, for 60% of Americans. That's not going to be fun, okay? Now, if Kamala Harris wins, I believe her proposal, again, this depends on Congress, we don't know where that's going to go, she was going to extend it for a portion of Americans. I believe it was under 400,000. If Trump wins, it's going to be a completely different thing. A lot of stuff is in the air. Both candidates have proposed no taxes on tips, so it's in the air in terms of what they are going to do. Also, corporate taxes. That's in the air, and that is going to impact the stock market as well, because each of these corporations do pay taxes. So taxes are on the table for what it does for you and what it does for the stock market. So that's one thing that the stock market is going to pay attention to, because also, if we are taxed more, then that's less money that we can spend at these companies. If it's less money we can spend at these companies, that's less earnings, right? When we do the earnings reports, that's less that the stocks are going to reflect, and that can hurt the stock market. For example, if my taxes go up by $4,000, that's less money that I can spend on a holiday season, for example. Okay, so that is why taxes absolutely matter when it comes to some of these companies, especially these consumer companies like an Amazon, for example, because I'm gonna have to cut something, right? So that's one thing that we do want to consider. Next here is tariffs. It is something that is very much at play, especially for one of the candidates. Some analysis say that based on some of the suggested tariffs, and I did an entire video on tariffs and how they work and all that kind of stuff, but the way that tariffs work is a super simple example, is that the importing company is the one that pays the tariff. Okay, now they pass that cost on to you. That is how that works. So for example, if I am, let's say, company A, and I am bringing in something from China to sell it to you, we see stuff that says made in China all the time. So there are people there are companies that import stuff from China all the time because they get it for super cheap. They can mark it up, sell it to you, or parts, or whatever it's going to be. So if we slap a tariff on it, and it's 200% higher, or whatever it is, and I'm company A, I pay that to the U.S. Treasury. The Treasury makes money that goes to the U.S. government, that helps the deficit, all type of stuff. Great for the country. Okay, that's fine. But now, company A now needs to make money. So what they do is increase the price and then sell it to you. Some analysis, and these sway depending on what economists you talk to, but most say that could cost Americans up to $4,000 per year. Now, you add the tax implication, depending on where you are, which candidate, and what gets passed by Congress, which we do not know. We do not know, which is why these stocks are going to become important. But higher taxes, perhaps, we don't know. Tariffs, which we don't know if this person is going to win. We don't know what tariffs are going to be put on what. So again, these are major question marks. Could cost up to $4,000 a year. The tariffs alone could cost the average American up to $4,000 a year, according to some estimates. Some, not all. We will see. Now, tariffs that were in place during the first Trump administration were very small, and they were on some agricultural goods. So most of us did not notice them, but these suggested tariffs are supposed to be much larger and like across the board. And they could be retaliatory as well, meaning other countries could then also slap their own tariffs back and forth. We'll see, right? And that is if he wins to begin with. So we got taxes, we got tariffs, and then we've got interest rates. Where are interest rates going to go? Are we going to continue to cut interest rates? This would be a good thing for the stock market. If you thought the first two things were bad, this will be good, or suggested to be good. We expect these to be good, because usually when rates are cut, this does spur on the stock market. People tend to borrow more. Companies tend to borrow more. And that does kind of juice the stock market just a bit more, as we did see during the, I would say, third quarter-ish of the year, though the stock market was up for the majority of the year anyway. So that is seen as a very good sign. So now that we have set the table, we've got taxes on the table, we've got tariffs on the table, and then we also have interest rates on the table. Now, with those three things on the table, what are some stocks that kind of fit neatly within each of these boxes and might not be as affected? Keyword, as affected by all three of those things. That is the most difficult part of this. Okay, I didn't say not affected. I did not say not affected. I said as affected. Some of these may shock you. One of them you might not like. Okay, the first one, hear me out, is Netflix. Netflix, first off, is up 34% in the last 6 months and up 89% over last year. Why is Netflix on the list? Now, in my view, I don't see Netflix being hit by a tariff. That would be odd. I don't see Netflix really being impacted by taxes by too much, because yes, if my taxes are raised by $4,000, that would be terrible. If I have to pay tariff on other stuff, that would also be terrible. But because Netflix is really low on my list of expensive things, $12, $15, whatever it is a month, that's probably not the first thing I'm going to cut. I'm going to look to cut the more expensive things up on the list, or just the higher things on my list. So if I'm spending $150 a month at the gym, maybe I'm gonna cut the gym membership and just do some push-ups first before I cut Netflix. And that's just because me and the kids watch Netflix and it's way cheaper, and I can go work out for free. I could just go outside and do that. I could literally pick up my daughter, who's 4, she's 40 pounds, and just do curls with the girl, right? And get in shape that way if I really wanted to, for free. But seriously, I think most people would adjust more of those things before you go all the way down to Netflix, before all that stuff happens. Now again, that doesn't make it immune. If interest rates were to continue to fall, Netflix does fall into the tech category. They will be able to borrow more, produce more content, and continue to get people hooked more into their ecosystem. But I think Netflix is a bit more baked in. They also have the momentum and have proved to, looks like they've seemingly won the streaming war, whereas Disney is still struggling, and the prices of entering Disney parks has gotten completely out of control. But that's a conversation for a different day. I have to roll with Netflix when it comes to streaming in general, but they seem to be in a very good sweet spot where their taxes increase, if it's tariffs, they don't seem to be as impacted by that. And if interest rates go the way that they go, or continue to go low, that's great. They stay where they are, they seem to be fine. So Netflix is the first one here. Next one is Intuitive Surgical. I think most of y'all know how I feel about healthcare companies. I kind of call them all-weather stocks in some cases. We need healthcare regardless of where things go. I like to have at least one or two of these in my portfolio at all times, whether it's, medicine companies like Eli Lilly, which I think is still a pretty good, solid stock. But in either case, you need one or two in your back pocket, okay? Because I always need my allergy medicine. I don't care where I'm at. Okay, the Flonase is always on your boy. Okay, but in either case, I do think a good, solid healthcare stock or two should be somewhere in your portfolio. At the time that I was researching this, and the way that we've talked about how I start to research stocks, but I like to look at the cream of the crop. And when I started to look, Intuitive Surgical just happened to be at the top. And I'm not saying it's the only healthcare stock out there. I'm not saying it's the best one in the world forever and ever. But at the time that I looked, Intuitive Surgical, and the stock symbol is ISRG. They're up 36% in the last 6 months and up 97% over the last year. They make, obviously, surgical equipment. And there are two risks I want you to know about as well. Because, again, the company's not immune. But people are still going to need surgery. Regardless of what happens, people are going to need surgical equipment and all the stuff that goes around with that. I don't see the demand of that falling off. I don't see... if I had a crystal ball, then I would know exactly what to do. But again, it's healthcare, it's surgical equipment. These things tend to be pretty stable. And again, whether your taxes go up or not, if it is a surgery that you absolutely need, you getting that equipment regardless. Okay, I don't see interest rates really having a huge impact on whether or not you get that surgery equipment. That's just me. Okay, I don't think that's a question. Now, the two risks. Number one, because the company has expanded pretty quickly, there is some supply chain concerns in that have they gotten too big too fast in terms of being able to produce as many things that they need to produce to keep up with the expansion that they have seen. So that is one concern that some analysts do have. The next one is being able to grow internationally. Now, this concern level right now today is, I would say, maybe 4 out of 10 because of the threat of tariffs. Now, here's the thing, because I'm going to be even-handed here. The tariff thing could be a concern, and they did highlight China in this because they have some issues getting their stuff to China, and that's more so not because of a tariff, just because China can be weird, according to analysts and people more familiar with this company getting their goods to and from China, which is a major market. Now, should there be a tariff on surgical equipment, number one, I don't think that would make sense. I am not a tariff-specific expert on surgical equipment. Now, as someone with the econ degree and a master's in business, I can talk about tariffs in general, but to me, it would not make sense to have tariffs on surgical equipment. It just doesn't, to me, I feel like people need surgical equipment. I just wouldn't tax that. I would tax potatoes, cars, trucks, stuff like that. Surgical equipment, just like, it doesn't seem like something I would personally do. But hey, right? But also, if he doesn't win, then this conversation doesn't even matter when it comes to that. So that's why my concern is low. Also, there's so many things between now and then that I would need to worry about. Also, China is just one country, not all of them. There are other places that this company could expand to. So that is one concern should tariffs come in play, because that's not a guarantee. So that is something that, again, I do want you to be aware of, though this company is one of the best performers on this particular list. Next company, we have mentioned this before. This is not the company you're going to hate me for, but that one is Iron Mountain. Iron Mountain has been extremely strong. We have talked about it many times before. I feel like I mentioned at least once a year, once every other year. Up 66% in the last 6 months, up 120%. Just wild, up 120% over the last year. As I've said many times before, I know Iron Mountain as a shredding company because when I used to work in the office, it was just a gray box where you go and shred papers. That ain't all they do. When I was at a bank, that's just sticker, Iron Mountain. When you're done with client documents and they sign stuff and we're all good, you go and shred the stuff. They also do data and record keeping, computer backup, and a whole bunch of other things. But again, I don't really see that being too affected in one way or another. That doesn't make them completely immune, but also, if you were to zoom out even 5 years, they've been extremely strong for a very long time. For a very long time. I'm not saying that they are an all-weather company that you can have forever and ever, but they close. They are extremely close. The demand for data and record keeping, computer backup, and everything that they do is not really something that is, I can't say it's subject to change, but it's not fickle. I will say that the demand for what they do isn't really, it doesn't fluctuate often. I'll say that. And I think you need something that's going to be solid, that in an environment where we don't really know what is going to happen, especially over the next year. And I think that is extremely important too. And perhaps the most important thing. Yes, most of us are focused on what's going to happen next week. Okay. However, it's not just next week. It's also, what is Congress going to do? How is that mix going to gel? And it's really for the next 6 months to a year that there's a bunch of question marks around what the priorities are, who's going to pass what, and all of that stuff that we don't know. What I do know is that Iron Mountain has been solid. What I do know is I doubt that Netflix is going to be as impacted. And what I do know is that people are going to need surgical equipment, regardless of all of those things. These are things I don't have to worry as much, keyword as much, about than other companies. Next here, and this is when some people might hate me for, maybe, it's Walmart. Sorry, it's Walmart. WMT, stock symbol. You should know its performance by now. Up 36% in the last 6 months, up 53% in the last year. Why does your boy have Walmart? Why do I need to mention it again? Every other day hits an all-time high. Earlier this year, it did a stock split. All that stuff. The main thing is this. I don't call any stock recession-proof. This may be as close as you can get to it, other than like a Costco or something like that. But the main thing is this. If costs go up, if there's a tax raise, if tariffs raise taxes or raise costs, because let's say they don't, right? But let's say taxes do. If that's the case, then people are going to continue. We've seen this happen now. We have proof of this. I don't have to make it up. I don't have to guess. There's no conjecture here. If costs go up or continue to go up or they spike, whatever is going to happen, if that's the case, people are going to find discounts wherever they can. We just saw Target, I think, decrease costs for like 2,000 goods or something like that. They trying to be like a Walmart right now. But if that's the case, people are going to try and find deals wherever they can. They're going to go to Walmart. They've been going to Walmart. We also know, and I've told you guys this stat before, in the 12 months after a stock split, those stocks tend to outperform the stock market. For the next 6 months or so, that still may be the case. They've been extremely solid. They're still on that particular run right now. Again, I don't think interest rates is going to impact them too much, and they tend to be just a little bit isolated, not completely immune. Should tariffs or can tariffs impact them? It is certainly possible. It is certainly possible. I think Walmart has a bit more options. I am sure, while I don't have an exact number of how much stuff Walmart imports from other countries, I'm pretty sure they import a lot from China. If a tariff is enacted, I'm sure the cost of goods for Walmart is going to go up. That is likely, okay? Could those costs be passed on to people? That is likely, okay? But again, is it likely that all those tariffs are going to be enacted? Is it likely that the person looking to implement those tariffs could even win? Those are question marks I don't necessarily have to ask, but also, if that were the case, costs are going to go up across the board, everywhere. So where else would those people shop anyway? You let me know. Because it wouldn't just be a Walmart specific thing. So if Walmart had to pay those costs, so too would Target, so too would Dollar General, so too would everywhere else. And we know right now people are shopping and moving towards Walmart than anywhere else based on how well Walmart had been performing compared to everywhere else. So we saw this during inflationary times. they were choosing Walmart. So if costs go up across the board, they're going to continue going to Walmart. So it's kind of a net positive for Walmart at the end of the day. Not net positive for me and you if, keyword if, that were the case. So again, all roads are still coming back to Walmart when compared to other companies in all of those scenarios. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Now, these aren't the only stocks in the world, but these tend to be based on what is on the table for the market. Now, it's other issues out there about other things. That's not what I went to school for. Okay, that's just not what I went to school for, not what I'm qualified to speak about. Okay, I'm staying in my box on this here channel. Okay. But what I will say is I do want to take the time to thank everybody for the birthday wishes and thank all of the people, sorry, members only, that allow all this stuff to be possible. I'm going to also tell you, if you join our members only, not only do you get live, or not live access, you get advanced access to videos. Sometimes they're like 20, 30 minutes early. Sometimes they're days early, like this video, depending on what's going on and how urgent the news is. Also, if you are new to the members only, I usually like update this slide like every week. So if you don't see your name today, could be next week. Just to let you know. And then sometimes, depending on what's going on, how urgent things are, sometimes I do a deep dive analysis, and you get like one-on-one access to questions. So if you ask a question, you want me to break down something, we have a members only area inside of YouTube where I'll do an entire post on a stock that you're asking me about too. So there's a little tag that you get, and then it goes to me, and I can do that. So ask your questions. Ask your questions if you're inside the members. If you're not in the members only, you can still ask questions. Okay, I just may not see it as fast, but you'll get that. But members only, you get an entire post and like serious deep dive breakdown and a video dedicated to you at times, depending on what your question is. But also, if you have other questions about the stock market, about tariffs, about what you need to know to diversify your portfolio, and everything in between, then you might want to check out these videos next.